UiPath, and I'm the main driver behind the UiPath IT Automation initiative. In the first part of today's call, I will talk a bit about the IT automation landscape in general. Then I will show you what capabilities we have on this front built into our platform, how some of our customers are using it, how we are using it, and then I'm going to proceed with some IT automation demos with Studio Web. At the end, we're going to have a Q&A session. All right, so why IT automation? Well, organizations today, in the context of the digital transformation wave, have a lot of challenges on multiple fronts, right? Security, change management from a technology point of view, governance, SLAs, technical debt from legacy systems. But in the context of digital transformation, a lot of investment is happening in this space, and RPA is acting like a catalyst for change. COVID has impacted this transformation in the sense that it has accelerated it. So during the time of when COVID started, we saw a rise, of course, in remote work, which came with challenges on multiple fronts. So IT workload, 37% rise, security issues, 66% rise, IPSM issues, requests, tickets, 39% rise. So huge rise in a really, really short amount of time. So this is the why we're doing IT automation. At the same time, we've seen over the years that IT aligns more and more with the business. It has transformed, it has evolved, right? It's no longer serves a siloed function role. It has evolved. It's now integrated with the other business components, and it has direct and measurable impact on the bottom line. So with IT automation, you can measure and show results very effectively today because of this transformation. At UiPath, we've added in our enterprise platform integrations that enable you to automate all areas of your IT ecosystem. Our vision around automation is, of course, holistic. So yeah, on top of what is traditionally associated with RPA, which is UI automation, we can do a lot more. Of course, testing, BPM, API, and on top of the API layer, we have also the IT automation integrations. All of them are background running, so everything that we've built executes in the background, and they leverage the official SDKs that come from the major technology vendors. We have activities for automating public clouds, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and also on-premise data centers, VMware, Citrix, Microsoft. From the user management space, we support Active Directory automation, Office 365 Active Directory, Exchange Server. So with our integrations, with our official activities, you can create workflows, automations that provision, create resources in the cloud, such as virtual machines, storage, configure networking, manage them, right? Start, stop these virtual machines as a function of some business rules. You can do employee onboarding, you can create user accounts, reset their passwords, assign them to roles, to groups, assign licenses to them, create mailboxes for these new users. So really, really powerful capabilities that come built right into the platform. We have today actually over 700 activities. We're getting closer and closer to 1,000, hopefully by the end of this year. Some of the packages targeted at this space developed by my team: Azure Virtual Desktop, AWS Workspaces, Google Cloud, Azure AD, Exchange Server, Mailbox configuration, System Center for interaction with existing jobs, existing automations built in this product, and on-prem data center hosts management, VMware ESX, Citrix Hypervisor, and Hyper-V, of course. So yeah, very powerful integrations. This example here connects to Azure, creates a new virtual machine from a public image, and then installs our robot inside that virtual machine without remoting, without having open ports, no PowerShell, no SSH, no UI automation. And we're connecting at the end the robot to an Orchestrator tenant. So yeah, all that in this simple, easy to build workflow. And again, all the activities are available on the official feed. Just search for Azure, AWS, whatever, and we're also going to see how this looks like in Studio Web shortly. All right, now you have the overview of what UiPath IT Automation is. Next, I'm going to tell you a bit about how our customers are using it. First, we have the IPSM space where we have a lot of workloads. User management involves many high frequency tasks such as onboarding, offboarding, changing roles, resetting past passwords, blocking, unblocking users, offboarding. So this customer of ours, a large European bank, did an assessment of the frequency of these jobs and decided what was more impactful to automate. They prioritized, they built a priority list of the automations that they wanted for this space. And you see that they reduced the average handling time of these tickets by 80%. Huge. And they saw return on investment in actually less than 6 months. Right? How everything works behind the scenes. The robot is integrated directly with their ticketing system. It parses the request when it comes in. An unattended robot decides after parsing the information from the ticket, which tasks it has to apply, and then goes ahead and runs it, creating a new user, assigning it to roles, changing the role for a user, password reset, lock unlock, close user. This is for offboarding, and afterwards it proceeds to close the ticket. For the legacy systems that you will usually find at banks, these legacy systems usually lack an API. You don't have an integration layer via CLI, API, or anything like this. And in this case, our UI automation capabilities act like a sort of bridge that fills in that gap for that part of the process. So yeah, very powerful capabilities, and we can solve use cases end to end, even in that cases. Now, not all requests will end up in a IT help desk queue, right? Users making requests from desktop, tablet, mobile, the request created by them can be processed from multiple sources. The service desk is just one of them. Maybe you want to expose this type of requests via a self-service portal. Maybe you have a chatbot. From a UiPath IT Automation solution point of view, we can handle them generically. So they all act like a request source, which basically triggers a job that assesses the request, and then the robot decides which job it starts. Unlock user, reset password, create virtual desktop, assign, I don't know, Zoom license. So the solution architecture is high level. It looks like this, very generic. And I would like to show you from a chatbot point of view how we're using it at UiPath. We have over 35 use cases implemented in this chatbot. We have the self-help category, where you can assign yourself, for instance, a Zoom license, or so upgrade to Zoom Pro, initiate password reset, or if you want to request some licenses involving cost, for instance, Microsoft Visio, Microsoft Project, I would go to standard software and accesses. I would say I need Microsoft Project. It asks me why. I'm going to say demo. Yes, I'm sure. And now what happens behind the scenes, a ticket is created for me, and an approval request is sent to my manager. The robot is monitoring this approval process, and when the manager either denies or accepts the request, the robot acts accordingly. If the request is accepted, our UiPath IT Automation Azure Active Directory activities will be used, and they will assign to my user the associated Office 365 SKU, which grants me access to Microsoft Project. So yeah, powerful capabilities behind the scenes. So again, whether the source of the request is a chatbot or a ticket in a service desk or a self-service portal creating that ticket, it doesn't matter. From a robot's perspective, it can handle incoming requests from all areas. Other customers are looking into migration, server migration. What's really cool about this use case is the fact that without automation, they wouldn't have been able to complete the task in time, right? So here we're not looking at making things more efficient. We're looking at actually being able to perform the task in the given time with the allocated resources. And yeah, they were able to accomplish the migration. It involves SQL servers, migrating data, databases, joining, unjoining computers to domain, running some commands inside those servers after they were migrated for some configuration. So quite complex migration solution, and they were able to successfully perform the task in record time. And from a migration point of view, this is again a high-level diagram. So whatever resources you might need to migrate, virtual machine, user accounts, file shares, the UiPath platform, and of course with the IT automation capabilities, can help at all steps. Pre-migration operations, preparing the VMs for that process, configuring databases. Then you can leverage existing built-in wizards from the cloud providers on these pre-processed resources. If you go with lift and shift approach, we can also help. You can export the virtual machine to OVF format, for instance, or VHD. And then with some IT automation workflows, you can import them in the cloud. Or of course, you can define a custom process. Post-migration, you might want to delete the on-prem resources, and at the end, of course, configure some more access rights. So whether you're doing this with the out-of-the-box official activities or REST API, or if none of them are available, scripting or UI automation, the UiPath platform can help at all steps of such a process. Other large customers are leveraging IT automation for robots auto-scaling. We do have the capability of elastic cloud robots in our cloud, UiPath.com, in our automation cloud. However, some customers that haven't updated or not, maybe they're not using the UiPath automation cloud, also have this need to run a more efficient RPA deployment. And UiPath IT automation comes to help with a solution that basically helps you define some rules, how many robots you want allocated when you have 0 pending jobs, for instance, right? Maybe you only want 1. And then you have all of a sudden 100, a spike, 100 jobs. And then the solution allocates those robots for you automatically. When the workload is gone, it deallocates the robots. And you have a lot of impact on your infrastructure costs, which such a solution, and yeah, we have a partner that successfully implemented this solution powered by UiPath IT Automation on thousands of robots. The solution behind the scenes basically leverages the Orchestrator API to see robot status, machine names, and to check the workload, how many pending jobs there are at a given moment. And with IT automation, we're powering on and off robot machines as a function of that workload. The rules are stored in a database, so yeah, and everything runs behind the scenes. The solution is configured with Orchestrator assets and the rules that you define in the database. Internally at UiPath, besides the chatbot that I already showed you, that implements over 35 scenarios, we're also using IT automation to reduce workload on our cybersecurity department. We're automatically processing brute force attacks on our public-facing Azure virtual machines. We're optimizing a bit our cloud virtual machines usage in scenarios that involve custom availability. So the owners of the virtual machines can specify via tags the hourly interval when they want their virtual machine to run. Perhaps, I know, you have a virtual machine that has a GPU attached. So that's a very expensive virtual machine. And you only want to run that VM at certain times when you need to do some processing on that VM. And the owner of that VM can specify in tags, I want this running Tuesday between 10 and 11 a.m., Tuesday between 2 and 3 p.m., Friday between 6 and 7 p.m., etc. So the owner has the power to decide in the tags when the VM is running. And we're also doing some license usage optimization. This also will impact your carbon footprint. Basically, in the IPSM tickets, right? We had an AHT of around 1 to 2 hours, and now we're looking at 1 to 2 minutes. So that's 98% reduction, 98% less energy consumed by an actual server operated by a human to solve that ticket. The virtual machines availability, 65% less. And our auto-scaling solution powered by IT automation is auto-scaling the robots performing all these automations as well. So we have some gain there too. Yeah, what's coming next for IT automation? We're looking at activities for container management and yeah, porting all the integrations to cross-platform. A great part of our official UiPath IT automation activities is already cross-platform ready, which I'm going to show you in the Studio Web demo. But we still have some activities that were not ported, such as the VMware ones, and yeah, we're going to make them cross-platform as well later this year. All right, enough slides. Let's take a look at IT automation in Studio Web. So I have here my UiPath IT tenant. Under Studio, I have my 4 projects that I'm going to demo for you today. We're looking at IPSM employee onboarding plus virtual desktop, provisioning of a server in the cloud, and also backup from a local backup files that you might have on your file share or on your computer to both S3 and Azure. I'm going to start with Azure AD employee onboarding. So for this, I'll have to switch to my UiPath test, Azure AD. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new user, add the user to some groups, and set a manager for this user, right? So under users, the user will be called Studio Web. No users found right now. Yeah, let's take a look a bit inside the project, how this is built. First of all, the UiPath IT automation activities require a scope. So yeah, for me to be able to add create user, I first have to add the create scope, the scope activity, Azure Active Directory. And yeah, you search for the scope. You are either scroll or yeah, just type scope, and it will come up in the results, and you can filter on the top by package, right? The scope takes as an input client secret, Azure AD tenant ID, and from the app registration, the client ID. These values, it's as a good practice, it's not okay for you to just hard code them in the workflow. I am getting them here from Orchestrator assets. So I'm using here the get asset activity and get credential activity. As you can see, they are in my workspace. So assets Andrei workspace, and yeah, here they are. Let's see how this works. So Azure AD tenant ID, you don't have to remember the name of the folder or anything like that. Let's clear the value. So Andrei's workspace, and then it will fill in behind the scenes the values. It will pre-populate the values with what you have in your orchestrator, right? So it listed for me the assets of the correct type. So here it filters by credential, here by the other types. And the output from these activities, I'm using it as input for my scope activity. Afterwards, inside the scope activity, I have my create user activity. Okay. In create user, yeah, you can specify everything that you're accustomed to. If you use this activity in the desktop edition of our studio, and actually here we have the exact same workflow like in Studio Web. So you will find the same inputs in Studio Web as well. For usability, some of the inputs are hidden under advanced options, yeah, such as job title, department, and the output of the activity. And the most common ones, like the initial password for user, forced password change on next login, the mail, Prince UPN, these are presented by default when you expand the activity. So I'm creating the user, then I'm adding the user to a group. In this case, it's going to be CloudOps. Again, I'm getting the group by name, and I have under advanced options my output. I'm adding the member to a group. So the group ID comes from the get group by name activities output. And the user ID comes from the create user activity output. And yeah, I'm specifying user.id. Let's see how we do this. So user ID, use variable. These are project variables, the in arguments of the workflow, but I want to use the output from the create user activity. So I'm going here to user, and then here I have the properties of my user object, and I need for this activity the ID. And the last activity is set manager. So again, the output from create user .id, and then the user manager. The user manager comes from the in arguments. So under our data manager, we open the data manager. You see the workflows arguments: title, department, name, manager. The direction of the argument is in. So it's an in argument of type text, and this is the value, ITOps for my manager, and the user UPN Studio Web Demo. Okay. All right. When you're building your automation in Studio Web, you can, of course, test it. Behind the scenes, this is going to be executed under serverless, which behind the scenes is actually Linux. So these activities are cross-platform, and you can execute them on serverless, Linux, Mac, Windows. The trigger for such an activity could be a ticket. like I discussed, like I mentioned previously, or perhaps you expose this workflow to employees from the IT help desk department. So when somebody from HR asks them to onboard a new user, they receive the inputs and they just start the workflow from the assistant and provide all these inputs, and the IT help desk persona no longer has to go in all the tools. Yeah, they don't have to come in Azure AD, they don't have to go to Exchange, they don't have, so everything is done for them behind the scenes in less than a minute. And let's actually run this. Running, it's allocating for me the serverless instance. Package is restored, Azure AD employee onboarding executing, and it's done. See, everything is checked. Let's refresh in Azure AD. It needs a refresh. Let's do a hard refresh. Okay, here it is, Studio Web Demo. I have my name here, the UPN that I've specified, job info, department cloud, cloud ops, cloud engineer, and manager, IT ops manager 1, like I've specified in the workflow. Okay, so yeah, it's as easy as this to build an automation for one of the most common scenarios, employee onboarding. And yeah, again, you can extend this type of workflow with a lot of other steps. So besides creating the user, setting an initial password, setting the manager, perhaps you also want to assign an Office 365 license. For instance, yeah, Microsoft project, you want to assign Visio. You can do that by simply using the license activity. So we have activities for assigning a license and removing a license. Assign license takes as an input the user. So I'm going to create user and the ID, as easy as that. And then the license ID, this is a string. Okay, what do we provide here? Well, we have dozens of options. If we navigate to the Azure AD Enterprise User Licensing Service Plans reference, you see that here we have a huge list, right? And in this list, you have all the SKUs associated with Office 365. So a ton of SKUs. And what you need from this list is just this GUID. So this GUID, see, specifies the license that you are assigning. And it can be an Office license, Microsoft project, Windows Server, Windows Professional even. So yeah, a lot of licenses. And let's see for project, yeah, a ton of SKUs. Dynamics, and also, yeah, a lot of SKUs that you can assign. You just need to copy the GUID associated with that SKU and provide it as an input here in the license ID area. And that's all. So really powerful. Let's say that your organization is using virtual desktops. So when a new employee joins, besides creating Office 365, besides assigning Office 365 plan for them, Microsoft project license, for setting an initial passwords, adding roles, etc., you also want to create a new virtual desktop for this user. What would you do? Well, in Azure, we have Azure Virtual Desktop activities, and you can use these to either provision the virtual desktop from zero, so end to end, or assign the user to an existing virtual desktop. let's also take a look at AWS. So let's say that your user is an Active Directory user and that you want the virtual desktop to be in AWS. In AWS, virtual desktops are called workspaces. Yeah, for the directory services, you can use in AWS either AD as a service or actually deploy an AD instance. You can leverage our IT automation NetIQ eDirectory activities, which are cross-platform, to connect to those directories and create there the users and yeah, assign the roles, rights, and at the end, of course, create the virtual desktop, the workspace. Workspace creation takes around 20 minutes. So our workflow will just initiate the provisioning of the virtual desktop. We won't also be logging in, but yeah, you're gonna get the idea. Okay, so this workflow is taking a bit longer than usual to load.
Can we take a few questions while it loads?
Yeah, I'd love to answer some questions.
Because we have some questions in the chat, yes. First, it's from Andreas. He asks, where would you place the IT automation topic as an entrance, CIO, CDO, or is experience that it makes more sense to go to a dedicated department like IPSM?
Actually, it's a mix. And why am I saying that? It depends on the organization. If the organization is more top to bottom, so the CIO defines the strategy and decides what's to be used in the organization, then yeah, the top level, top to bottom approach is best. And when you take this approach, the argument should be around ROI, so return of investment, the impact, and yeah, the fact that our capabilities, as you could see, are vendor agnostic. The capabilities come built into the platform, so you don't have to pay extra to them. You just have them. You have the robot, and yeah, you can use all these integrations that I'm showcasing with no additional cost. If your organization adopts technology bottom to top, so yeah, employees from the IT help desk department decide which tools make their life easy, then the approach is a bit different. They will go for more attended scenarios, and there we can help as well, as I mentioned in my example with onboarding. The same workflow could be executed unattended by a robot that automatically picks up the ticket in the ticketing system, or it can be started by the IT help desk agent from our assistant. In my opinion, as an entry point to IT automation organization, IPSM is the perfect place to start. Why? Because there's a lot of workload there, and the results will be visible really fast here. So you have high frequency workload. So I know user lock unlock or changing roles, moving the user from a department to another, granting rights to some application or server, removing the rights. And after you have a powerful success story, and from IPSM, you're usually going to have it really fast, and they will see the impact. In our case, these 35 use cases that were identified, that you can leverage them from our chatbot, actually represented 15% of our entire IT help desk workload. 15%. That was huge for us. And now with other automations that we're adding, we're going to go beyond 20%. So yeah, and after you're going to have this success with the entry point, others will want to take a look at it as well, and they will think, okay, what can I do in my department? That's how we onboarded the cybersecurity, for instance, right? And yeah, it will grow from there. But ITSM, it's a quick win.
Okay, Andreas, I hope that answer was good for you. Do you want to take 2 more questions, Andrei?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Christian is asking, oh, I don't know exactly which option he's referring to. He's asking, will this option be available on on-prem Orchestrator? But I will ask him to unmute now. So
yes.
Yeah. Which option?
Hi, guys. Hi, guys.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm working to a company where we have the on-premise version of the Orchestrator, right?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking once you have this UiPath Studio, I wonder if it can be activated something like actions or, I don't know, some other option into the UiPath, I don't know, Orchestrator or something. Can we activate it into on-premise deployment?
It will be, but I don't think that this year. So this year, so Studio Web is right now available in public community preview, right? That's how you can try it on our cloud.uipath.com, and the GA will be this autumn with the October release. As you can see, it's already quite mature, and we're leveraging a lot as well.
Looks amazing.
But the GA will be a bit later this year, and afterwards, of course, it will be available. But I don't know the availability timeline. Maybe next year, but not. I'm not sure. Usually, what we do at UiPath is the latest feature will be available in our cloud uipath.com, in our automation cloud, and then they are ported to on-prem. We did that with data service. We did that with a lot of cool features. So definitely, it's coming on-prem, but it won't be this year. And this year, it will be available in our automation cloud, and the GA will be in this autumn.
Andrei, Christina, this we are using in where I'm working. We are using Microsoft Flow, Power Automate basically, and seems to be a bit very similar to that one. In essence, will be something in the same structure as we see in Power Automate, due to the design that we see here and the way how everything looks.
Well,
will be something similar.
Flow charts and yeah, they look similar, I would say, in most platforms, right? You have the if, you have the while, you have the whatever. The inputs for create user will be the same. So in this sense, yes, it will be familiar. However, as you can see already, you can do a lot more with our Studio Web on the integrations front, especially now that we also have the incoming triggers from the integration service, another component that will also be available on-prem, by the way, and connections. I'm going to showcase data backup, and there I will be leveraging integration service connection. So when you connect all these dots, the value proposition from the UiPath platform and including Studio Web is more powerful and more vendor agnostic. So my reply would be that you will be able to do everything you can do there and then some more, and you'll be able to do it easier. So we're working a lot on the usability side of things, as you can see from the current preview. These activities that I'm showcasing, IT automation ones, are more complex, I would say, from an input perspective. So if you haven't worked, for instance, with AWS Workspaces, maybe you're not familiar with what a bundle is, right? But it's very easy to find out from our documentation, directory ID, the Active Directory, basically from, right? So from a usability point of view, we can't do much. You will need to know at the end of the day what a bundle is, right? But again, we're trying to make it really easy for you to connect to variables, to define custom powerful expressions. And where we could, we replaced scopes with connections in the integration service. So instead of having these bindings here to username password, you would just have a drop down which says use Andrei's AWS connection. And I'm going to show that for the data backup demo. So yeah.
Andrei,
I'm going to leave the AWS session link in the chat for you because we have that in Tech Integration Series, the AWS session.
Super. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Andrei. Looks awesome.
My pleasure.
Another question from my side.
Just one more question, Andrei.
Sure.
Short form, because this is simple. Anne is asking, what are the benefits of using Studio Web over Studio?
Well, maybe you're a Mac user and you're doing IT automation. As I mentioned, IT automation, everything that we've built. So here in the activities area, you have over 355 individual activities for IT automation, and none of them require a UI. So you could build an IPSM workflow to onboard the user, to create a new server and deploy an application in it, or a database server or whatever from your browser. Let's say you use Safari. You're on a Mac. You can build these workflows, everything that I'm showing in Safari, and run them on your Mac assistant. You no longer need the Studio Desktop installation to build this type of workflows, which I find very powerful. To be honest, since Studio Web is available also internally, even from the early previews, this is how I've built all of the IT automation showcases and workflows. So yeah, I would say that it enables different usage for you. You could build these workflows in Safari on an iPad and test them with serverless. How cool is that? So you no longer need Studio Desktop, at least for IT automation use cases entirely. What I'm showing here in Studio Desktop is the employee onboarding project. So if you go to the projects area, you can download the project. You will end up with a zip file like this. And if you open it in Studio Desktop, it will open just fine and run just fine. So it's portable. So yeah, you can build everything in the browser. You can send it to a colleague who uses Studio Desktop. They will be able to play with it, to add to it. You can import it then. So yeah, I would say it enables new usage scenarios. And for the IT space, it's all you will need in 90% of the use cases.
Okay, we're getting compliments in the chat too. Michael is saying, nice question, Anna, and great work, UiPath. I was having a headache, how to solve the Mac problem.
Yeah, so no, we got you. So we have the Mac Assistant now. The Mac Assistant can run everything that I'm showing you, and everything that I'm showing you, you can build it in Safari. So
Michael is also saying that he's waiting for the Studio X web version.
Studio X web version, what you're seeing from a usability point of view in Studio Web will be ported to Studio X, to the desktop. So the view models that you're seeing here, validations, values coming dynamically for assets, this type of functionality will be ported to the desktop flavor of our Studio, both X and the standard Studio Desktop. So they will look more similar in the future. We're trying to bring the experience to narrow the difference, the UX experience gap.
Okay, cool. I think we can go on with the session now, and I will catch the rest of the questions for the end Q&A.
So again, on top of creating a user, setting a password, assigning some apps, you might also want to create a virtual desktop, a VDI. In AWS, it's called a Workspace. I have here as a workflow in argument the username. This is an Active Directory user again. If you wanted to create the user, the Active Directory user, we have the NetIQ eDirectory package. All the activities that you are familiar with from our Active Directory package are here. and the way you use them is identical. The only difference is that the NetIQ eDirectory package can connect to both eDirectory and Active Directory, and it's cross-platform. The Active Directory one is very tightly connected to the Windows Server, and that's why we went in this direction for cross-platform. But again, both packages basically implement the LDAP, leverage the LDAP protocol, so they are compatible with both AD and eDirectory. So you would create the user in AWS in directory there. You would set a password, add to groups, etc. And then the user, the username, you use it as an input for the create workspace activity. You specify the directory where to search for this user, and the bundle ID. Basically, this is an image for the virtual desktop, and this particular bundle ID is associated with a Linux desktop. Then we have advanced properties like power off the storage configuration for the workspaces. And besides create workspace, we have a ton of activities for managing the workspaces, for updating them, updating the OS, for instance, for everybody using that workspace, restoring, rebuilding, etc. So not only provisioning of virtual desktops, but also management of virtual desktops is possible with existing activities. So yeah, again, very simple to configure. You need the connection. If the robot associated with the folder where you're running the automation lives in AWS, so it's an instance in AWS, you no longer need to provide access key ID and the secret. You can simply add an IAM role, specify the IAM role to be used, and yeah, you're done. So keep that in mind for when running robots under AWS. You no longer need to use the access key ID and secret. IAM roles is sufficient, right? And yeah, under this scope we have create workspace, and this will create the virtual desktop for my existing or new user. Okay, so this is running behind the scenes. It will trigger for me the creation process in AWS. Right now it's assigning a serverless runtime. Restoring packages started. Here we have the checkbox and it's ready. If you wanted to do some more operations on the workspace after it's ready, you would set wait for completion to true, and then you would leverage the output of this activity to, I don't know, to power off the workspace or whatever. Or if you want to assign in parallel I don't know, if you want to parallelize, to assign a workspace to 20 users, let's say, then I wouldn't wait for the completion. No, I would just do it like I did now. You trigger the creation. Let's see it actually. Yeah, and here it is. It's now pending for username swdemo. So yeah, if you wanted to do this in parallel for multiple users, I would set this value to false as it is right now, and then at the end maybe do some pooling to see if the status is different than pending, you know, and then perform some operations in there. All right, let's go to the other demos. So I have here IT Automation Cloud Create VM, a workflow that maybe somebody from IT help desk or from infrastructure or cloud ops gets the request to create a new application server or database server from an image. Again, this request could be handled automatically by the robot picking up the ticket directly from Jira, from ServiceNow or whatever, or they can have it at their hand in the assistant and just start the workflow. This workflow takes as an input two arguments: the virtual machine name, the server name as swdemo VM, and the cloud where it needs to be created, GCP. In the workflow logic, I'm doing a switch, and as expression, you see that I have the cloud in argument. the switch activity is evaluating my expression, the cloud in argument. If it's AWS, Azure, GCP, it does something. If it's a value different than these three, it will throw an exception. Yeah, let's take a look at GCP. So for all of these, again, I have scopes. So I need to get the credentials. Don't embed credentials in the workflows. Get them from credential stores. I'm using the Orchestrator assets here to store my AWS, Azure, and GCP credentials. And these credentials are binded to my scope activities. So GCP scope, I'm using the service account key, a value, a string that I'm getting from an Orchestrator assets. I could also use a file that's added next to the project. So yeah, I could add that JSON from GCP near my XAML, near my project JSON, and that would be it. But again, I don't encourage it. And what I'm doing next, I'm creating the VM. In GCP, it's called an instance, the same like in AWS, with VM name binded to my VM name in argument, the project ID, IT Automation Demo, the zone, the machine type. You have a list here, and this is valid for all vendors, Azure, AWS. So where we could provide you with drop downs to make your life easy, so you don't have to type something. We did. If you wanted to run a script, a command when the VM is created, you select from here which type of script, bash script, PowerShell, etc. This is the source type. I'm creating this new virtual machine from a disk, from an image, from a snapshot, and then the source. And this is from the public repository. This is a Linux Debian virtual machine. And then, of course, you have advanced options for networking, for storage, everything that you might expect. All right, and afterwards, I'm performing a for each so that I list the virtual machines from my project to see that it's being created. Okay. It didn't like something here. I'm gonna reload the project. Yeah, that's the risk with live demos, of course. So yeah, for each instance iterates through my IT automation demo project. It will only list one virtual machine. I don't have others here. This is loading. Okay, so Cloud GCP. It will go through the GCP branch and create a Debian Linux machine, and afterwards it will iterate through the virtual machines from that project and log the virtual machine name. So for us, it should say SW demo VM. And we're going to do this now for GCP. Then I'm going to also do this for Azure. Okay, so it's now allocating the serverless runtime. In Studio Web, as you could see, we have automatic autosave. So in case of crashes, failures, etc., which might still happen, because again, we're in community preview. We're not GA yet. You should be safe. Restored, execution started. Create instance. And here you have it, already listed as wdemo VM. Let's go to the Google Cloud Console. Here as well, we have the option to wait for the creation of the VM. And here it is as wdemo. If you want to perform additional operations on the server, yeah, you set that flag to true, and that's it. But again, you see how fast and how easy it is to build such a workflow. Let's go to Azure. So again, I have my credentials. For connecting to Azure, we have more inputs. Client secret ID for the registration, the tenant ID, subscription ID. I'm getting the VM by publisher. I'm creating here a Windows Server image from the latest 2016 version. Create VM, the resource group where this VM is being created, the region, the VM name, and the image comes from the get VM image activity output, the one right above. The size of the VM, again, we have a drop down. And afterwards, I'm iterating through the virtual machine. I have a get VM list activity. You can filter by power states and by other properties, and then a for each that takes as an input the get VM list virtual machine list. And then I'm logging things. So let's go to my resource group. Make sure SW demo doesn't exist there already. Azure is a bit slow today. All right, here we are. So in dev test Andrei Oros resource RG resource group, we're going to create a new server. For this, we have to go to the in argument. Instead of GCP, I'm going to write here Azure. And now the switch expression will evaluate to Azure, and the workflow will go through this sequence, through this case. So yeah, and as easy as that, you see how easy it is to deploy a server in any cloud you might need. Execution started. It's connecting to Azure. And when it's ready, we should see SW demo here with status creating. And here it is. So it listed the other VMs that I had in my resource group, plus SW demo VM. Let's see, refresh. Here it is, SW demo VM. And it should say creating, or if it's fast enough, it will say running already. Let's check it out. Here it is, status creating. So yeah, VM creation is in progress. Okay, so again, very easy to build, very, very powerful. Next, I'm gonna show you data backup related workflow. So I have on my file share on OneDrive, I have a folder with some files in it. Studio Web Cloud Storage Demo. And these files, I have them locally on my computer and also in my OneDrive, right? And for backup reasons, for data migration reasons, you might want to copy these files to Amazon S3 or perhaps to an Azure blob container. And this workflow does exactly that. You specify as an in argument the destination, the cloud, where you want these files to be uploaded. Again, we have the credentials retrieval from the assets. Then I'm using the get bucket activity for Amazon. The bucket name is SW demo. And here we have the bucket. Let's refresh it. Okay, no files in it, perfect. And then I'm iterating through my OneDrive files. I'm using the for each file folder activity that's leveraging Microsoft OneDrive connection from the integration service. If you have multiple connections, you can specify the one you want to use from the dropdown. And you can also browse for the location. So Studio Web Cloud Storage Demo. So OneDrive, my OneDrive, IT automation. So see, I'm browsing right now from Studio Web, directly from Studio Web, my folders and files, Studio Web Cloud Storage Demo. And these 3 files, what will happen to them? They will be downloaded locally where the robot is running. And then I'm using the upload object from file activity, which takes that locally downloaded file and copies it, uploads it to the S3 cloud. In the Azure case, from the switch, I'm doing the exact same thing, except that, yeah, so I'm getting a storage account, then from the storage account, I'm getting my key. Okay, it didn't like something here either. Maybe my colleagues are doing some maintenance. So you have to get the storage account, the Azure storage account. Then you get the key from that account, and then using that information, you get the blob container. And this is the blob container. My storage account is IT Automation 01. And the container is called SWITA demo, and I have 0 files in it, as you can see. Okay, and after I get these Azure objects, these Azure resources, again, I'm doing a for each file, and these 3 are being downloaded locally where the robot is running, and afterwards they're being uploaded to the cloud. All right. Again, this can be, I know, a workflow that is triggered periodically. You want to periodically back up the files from your OneDrive to the cloud, to cold storage, or yeah, you want to perform a migration, a data migration, to archive some projects that you've worked on, they're ready, and then you move everything to an archive. So yeah, you can think of numerous use cases where you can apply this. The first upload will be done to Azure. Let's run this. So when it's ready, we should see these 3 files uploaded to my container, to my blob container in Azure. Any questions?
We had only one more question, which was earlier from Christopher. He wanted to explain more about triggers, how triggers work in Studio Web.
Triggers are basically a capability from the integration service. And yeah, you configure a trigger when a new mail arrives, start this workflow. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, the files are here. And let's see the same for AWS. So I specify now in the in argument AWS, and I'm going to run this. So you can leverage triggers. You must configure them in the integration service, and they will basically replace for you pooling. Execution started. It's connecting. See, it's connecting to AWS. Get bucket successful. Download file successful. Uploading. So you see the live status. Perfect. And let's see in the bucket. Yeah, I have my 3 files, UiPath IT Automation, 1-pager, white paper, and the presentation. Great. Yeah, so the triggers will replace for you the pooling side of things. So let's say that you wanted to build today an automation that checks if a ticket, we were talking earlier about IPSM, if a ticket was approved or not, right? Maybe you would schedule today in the Orchestrator, you would schedule a job that would check the status of tickets from a queue, if they've been approved or canceled or something like that. With a trigger, you no longer have to do that pooling part by yourself. The integration service does this for you. And yeah, basically behind the scenes, the integration service is also doing some pooling where the third-party APIs don't expose any webhooks or anything like that. but it makes life really easy for you because you just configure how often you want that pooling to be done for ServiceNow, for Jira, for the mailbox, or for, I know, a file is uploaded to SharePoint or OneDrive, and then you just specify what workflow is started. So for that, I encourage you to take a look at the integration service presentations. They went into details on this topic. But again, from my point of view, the major benefit is the fact that you no longer have to implement and maintain that pooling part at the beginning. The integration service will take care of that for you. Okay, so yeah, this concludes my demos. So we've covered with these simple workflows that you can build in the background in the browser and they're running in the background. We covered a lot of ground. So user management, employee onboarding, role changes, VDI, virtual desktop creation, server provisioning, can be for applications, for database, data backup and migration. So these workflows enable all that. And you can get them from the forum, from our Studio Web IT Automation announcement. I actually attached there the project zip files, and you can try them out. I also want to bring to your attention that we have in our official UiPath documentation portal an IT automation section where we offer you basically an overview of everything. You can download the white paper, you can see our targeted activity packs for this space. We haven't added here FTP, database, etc., which basically also touch this IT automation area. We've only listed the more specialized ones, not the generic ones. You also have a cross-platform compatibility table. Basically, everything that's cross-platform is also available in Studio Web, and you see that most things already are. Active Directory, again, you have as an alternative for it NetIQ eDirectory. You can perform the exact same operations. VMware is coming later this year. We're leveraging a new API from VMware to make the package cross-platform. Hyper-V and System Center and Exchange are very tightly coupled to Windows Server. And we're going to see how, if it's possible, we're going to migrate these as well to cross-platform. If not, they will only be available in legacy projects. Also, here we list a lot of getting started resources, workflow samples. So on GitHub, we have under our UiPath organization, the public repository IT Automation Workflow Solutions. And yeah, here under components, we have grouped a lot of workflow samples, Azure AD, yeah, virtual machine management. So you can get a lot of samples. We also have components on the marketplace. So robots auto-scaling, auto-healing, the workflow solutions, you can download them for free from here. And of course, more high level, if you go to UiPath IT Automation, uipath.com/IT-automation, it will take you to this area where you get more high level content. Let's say if you're talking to CIOs or IT leaders, this would be the go-to place to get some resources. If you're talking to, I know, sysadmin personas, IPSM personas, I would start from here, from these resources. And I'm going to share the links with you, what I just showed now in the chat. And also we're going to follow up after the session. All right, and now let's do some Q&A.
Q&A, yeah. Let me, okay, so everyone can unmute now and ask questions. Guys, if you have any questions for Andrei, now is the time. Okay, we're seeing some bye-byes, but no questions. No one has any questions about the session today?
Okay, hi everybody. This is Michael from Singapore.
Hi, Michael.
Yep, hi. I'm a senior lecturer with Nanyang Business School. Yep, and I also teach RPA as one of my subjects. Right. What I'm looking for, what I'm looking for is I'm looking to write a case study, on RPA implementation. Right. So I'm not sure if the UiPath will be able to find a client who is willing to do interview with me, and I'll find out more information from them, detailed information from end to end, the implementation process that they have been through, and then their success story, and then of course for those information that are to be kept confidential, then it will be kept confidential, not be published.
So to answer you quickly, first of all, we have the UiPath Academic Alliance program, which gives you a lot of resources, and I think it answers some of your question. On the IT automation front, we have these webinars with customers, and they told publicly they talked publicly about their experience. They told us about their use cases, pain points, etc. So, for instance, you can check out from the UiPath IT Automation landing page the Wreck-It success story, right? A very in-depth webinar where they talked about how many hours, business hours they saved with us, and what IT automation use cases they implemented. And again, the focus here, it was also on IT operations, ITSM, this space. Again, a quick win, in my opinion. And you can just
that is fine. That's fine. IT operation is fine. Of course, I'm coming from a business angle, so we are looking for
correct. But as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, right now IT is no longer decoupled from the business, right? So you have the value chain of organization here on the left from Michael Porter. Previously, IT was just a support layer, right? But no longer. So that has changed. As part of digital transformation, things has evolved. Now IT is transversely integrated in all these layers. And you no longer can tell what's a business process and what's an IT process. So now as part of end-to-end business processes, you have IT tasks, right? So let's say employee onboarding, in my opinion, it's one of the best examples. Employee onboarding is a business process. When a new employee joins the company, you have to, I don't know, send some document, some documents, create the user account. That's an IT task. Then, I don't know, to deploy the virtual desktop, so somebody needs to approve that, yes, we have enough resources in AWS. You have approval, which is another business decision, right? Then you have a notification. Then you have, I don't know, legal DocuSign documents. The person onboarding the organization needs to sign stuff. So we're looking at end-to-end business processes that have as steps also IT tasks, such as the user creation, initial password, VDI, and approval, and some legal. But the end-to-end process is a business one. It's not an IT task anymore. You know what I mean?
Yep. So, Andrei, you mentioned a link just now that you meet up with UiPath meet up with.
Can you repeat, please?
You
Your
mentioned
connection.
a link, a community link or forum where
the forum posts. Yeah, sure, I can share that with you. Yeah, sure. All right. I see another question from Adrian. Why would anyone use UiPath to automate this rather simple IT process? What are the advantages compared to other scripting tools. Exactly what I was saying previously, because if you use those scripting tools, or maybe some, I know in Azure you have logic apps, right, which are, yeah, those are really siloed. And as you said, they're really simple, and you will need to integrate these simple tasks in a higher level process, such as onboarding. Onboarding doesn't involve only the account creation by IT. It involves some legal, it involves some approvals, it involves somebody giving the okay that you have enough storage for something. You know, the process is not, it's a business process. It's not a simple IT task that you can solve with scripting. Also, if both you and I would be writing a script, it will look very different, right? So from a maintenance and governance point of view and security and etc. And from a risk perspective, right? Because you author a script, maybe you don't comment it well enough, etc. If you leave the company has risk from that implementation. Adopting RPA for these processes improves on all these levels, improve the situation for the company on all these levels. First of all, the process is not siloed. If you already have a script, like you mentioned, right, embed it in the RPA workflow that also does the document processing and approvals and all that stuff. Nobody's saying that you should throw away that investment. You already have it, it works fine. Integrate it in the higher level workflow. But in time, you have the option to migrate what's inside that script to actual workflows that are easy to read by and maintained by others, right? And we're also lowering a lot the entry barrier, because scripting involves usually a bit of programming skills, right? And low code platforms such as ours make it really easy to build really powerful automation. We make it look very simple, but behind the scenes we're doing a lot of complex stuff. So so I would say that the fact that it's a business process and it's no longer siloed, the task, that script that you mentioned is just a step in a higher level flow. If you already have the script and you like to keep it, that's fine. You can simply include it, trigger it as one of the steps of the workflows. Later on, you can adopt the official IT automation activities or leverage our REST API capabilities. But for the organization, long term, you have more benefit from adopting this type of standard practices. You lower the entry barrier for other RPA developers, and you have lower risk. Okay. Okay, I hope I answered.
We have one more question from Rajiv. He's asking us if you can only use Studio Web for IT automation, or can you use it normally as you use Studio?
No, definitely not just for IT automation. I mean, I showed you in my data backup just a few activities from the Office 365 package, but I mean, you can leverage from those packages a lot of other activities to, I don't know, parse your email, to work with SharePoint, to work with G Drive. I mean, we have a lot of other activities as well. See, so emails, downloading for each, reading the email, replying, files. Let's see. Google Workspace, the new G Drive name, right? Copying files and so on, you calendar activities. So you can do a lot, document understanding, extract document data. You can already do a lot of, you can already build a lot of automations for a lot of other areas, not just IT automation. Web API, right?
Maybe you can tell them about the limitations versus Studio Desktop.
What's not ready, a big missing piece, but it's coming really soon, is UI automation. So that's something that's in the works. I've seen a demo running on Mac for UI automation, and it's great. I think that's the biggest
missing piece.
missing piece that our users, customers are accustomed to, but that's also coming really, really soon. But meanwhile, again, everything you might need from API automation to Office, files, G Drive, Office 365, OneDrive, a lot of IT automation, as you can see here, it's already available in
I think I understood. He's also saying, but I wonder if anyone else from IST or APAC has this problem. Rajiv is saying that he subscribed to Community Cloud, but it says Studio Web will be ready to use soon. It is already in Community Cloud. Is anyone in this call with the same problem? Rajiv, did you actually sign into Community Cloud and you cannot see Studio there?
Yes, Christian. Hi, this is Rajiv here. So exactly what you mentioned. Yeah, that's correct. So I have like I'm using the Community Cloud, but on the tab where it says Studio, Web Studio, I have subscribed it long back, but it still gives me the message saying that Studio Web will be ready soon, and then nothing moves.
Because it should show exactly as it shows for Andrei here, and for me it shows the same too.
The people who can't access it and want to access it, please leave us your emails and I will reach out to the Studio Web team to check your accounts in particular to see maybe it's just enabling. They have I know they have some waiting list because the demand is huge and they have these acceptance waves, you know. Each week they enable the feature for flag for a set of users, but today I think it should be for everybody. Leave us your emails and I make sure that you get the access, okay?
DM me in Zoom chat, so whoever is on the call and cannot yet access Studio from Community Cloud, please DM me your email addresses in chat, in Zoom chat.
So we'll make sure you have it.
Yeah, and
sure, Christina and Andrea. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajiv, for noticing.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, this is it from my side.
I have GL. Please first try to see if you can access it from Community Cloud, and then I will take your email address anyway. But I think most of you should be able to access it. So it's not a list of emails in order to access it, just a list of emails for those who tried and cannot access it.
Yeah, exactly. So who has trouble accessing Studio Web, let us know and we'll look into it.
First go to Community Cloud. We placed the link 3 times in the chat. And try, see if it's there. If it's not there, yes. Okay, Adrian, I got it. And Rajiv, I'm waiting for your email. Okay, perfect. I got your email, Rajiv.
Yeah, just send it.
Yes, thank you.
Well, again, I do hope you found the session useful. I think we covered a lot of ground, and yeah, I'm looking forward for you to try out UiPath IT Automation in Studio Web as well. I left the link to the forum post in the chat, and here there are 3 guides at the end for employee onboarding, backing up files to the cloud, and virtual machine provisioning. So 3 of the 4 use cases that I showed you today. You can just download them and import them with import project in Studio Web and edit them, try them out, and yeah, let us know what you think.
Okay, Sherban, please me send you your email as well. It seems that many have this problem. Yes, the video will be published on event link tomorrow, and you will also get an email notification. So the event from which you exited, you will get the PPT and video on the same link tomorrow. Okay, I got your email. Andrei, if we can switch share screen for a bit, because I want to show them some things about the upcoming tech integration series. And guys,